Tonight, we check in with the poor man's Greg Gutfeld, George Clooney. Remember, he wrote a scathing op-ed prior to the election calling on Joe Biden to drop out? And this week, he took to CNN, the only place he's seen less than in his own movies, to gloat. God, I hope Jake Tapper doesn't plant his lips firmly on George's puckered ass.
Did George Clooney, Hollywood's eternal leading man, unintentionally turn himself into a political punchline with a single grandstanding op-ed? He aimed for the gravitas of a modern-day statesman, a voice of reason cutting through the noise. Instead, he became the target of both a comedic sniper and a legal eagle. What followed was a public shaming that exposed far more than just political naivete. Clooney seemed to think he could moonwalk into politics with an espresso in hand, only to find the floor greased and the crowd ready with tomatoes.
What's the matter, George? Are the Hollywood roles getting a little hard to come by as you age and get decidedly more smug and self-congratulatory? I'm just asking. And chooses to finish this show by lecturing the audience on how journalism ought to be done. Speaking as Edward R. Murrow, he warns about the ongoing struggle for truth and integrity in the media. Truth and integrity. About the potential for the media to be manipulated and used for propaganda.
Clooney's dramatic entrance began with a widely shared op-ed. His grand appeal for Joe Biden to step down, ostensibly for the good of the country. Then came the CNN interview, where he channeled Edward R. Murrow, delivering a serious sermon about truth, honesty, and the media's obligations. For a moment, some admired him as the Hollywood figure, bold enough to speak uncomfortable truths. Others, however, saw something very different. A billionaire preaching from his Lake Como estate rather than a seasoned statesman. His commentary on America's struggles felt more than a little ironic coming from a man in a $20,000 tuxedo. The performance was polished, the delivery confident, but there was already a whiff of self-congratulation in the air. And that, as it turned out, wasn't even the full story.
It was a civic duty. When I saw people on my side of the street not telling the truth, I thought that was time to...
Are people still mad at you for that?
Some people, sure.
Wow, if that's Clooney with makeup. Imagine what he looks like without it, huh?
The carefully curated image of Clooney as a fearless truth-teller began to unravel, mostly due to the inconvenient issue of timing. It was revealed that his supposedly courageous op-ed came after attending a star-studded fundraiser for Biden, where he allegedly witnessed the president's troubling frailty firsthand. Yet, his call for Biden to resign came only after the infamous debate, when the entire nation saw what Clooney had supposedly witnessed weeks earlier. He criticized others in his party for their cowardice, but people began to wonder why his own courage took so long to surface. Was this a sincere revelation, or a conveniently timed statement after public opinion had already shifted? Questions piled up, the narrative started to break down, and what followed turned that doubt into a spectacle.
She and George get together and they start navel-gazing on stage about themselves, of course, and their vaunted profession, and how bad, how just terrible the media is, and had the following exchange.
What we do in this is we talk about the responsibility of journalists to hold truth to power, right? That's our goal. And so if you're doing that, and we don't tell people what to think when we show that montage at the end.
Enter Greg Gutfeld, who saw through Clooney's political posturing and responded with the brutal wit of a veteran roastmaster. Gutfeld didn't just poke holes in Clooney's claims. He napalmed the entire premise. He painted Clooney as the classic Malibu Messiah, a celebrity so accustomed to applause that he mistook it for political support. Gutfeld mocked the image of Clooney sipping espresso at his Italian villa while lecturing average Americans. Does owning a vineyard, he asked, qualify someone to speak on global economics? He compared Clooney's political opinions to trying to fix a plumbing leak with a spritz of luxury cologne. Smells nice, but does nothing. And then came the biting jab. Clooney once starred in a show with a talking goat, arguably his most meaningful foreign policy experience. Gutfeld didn't just find Clooney hypocritical. He saw him as the embodiment of Hollywood's hollow, high-calorie virtue signaling.
I remember Clooney's the same guy who held a star-studded fundraiser for Joe weeks before he dropped out and only called for him to quit after his disastrous debate. Clooney ignored concerns over Biden's age for years, only to magically come to the conclusion that he was demented when America finally saw what Clooney had been hiding. That's the problem with Dems. They're obedient shills for awful people, then pretend otherwise once voters see that they're full of. But remember, we were pointing out Joe's dementia before it was cool. We knew Biden was the worst president ever, which probably means Jimmy Carter died a happy man.
While Gutfeld brought the heat, Megyn Kelly used a quieter but sharper critique. She exposed Clooney's elite, virtue signaling, preaching climate change while logging a huge carbon footprint from private jets. His calls for equality, delivered from a guarded mansion, highlighted not just hypocrisy, but that he is the out-of-touch elite. Kelly challenged the idea that fame equals wisdom, and questioned why celebrities get platforms to lecture on complex issues. She saw through the polished PR image and uncovered even deeper troubling truths beneath the surface.
Tara Palmieri, who's got her own Substack and podcast now, she's been on the show, she got a copy and released a couple of the nuggets, and so did The Guardian. But hers was a really interesting nugget. And she's apparently in this book, they reveal that George Clooney saw Morning Joe one day, right after his op-ed, and Mika Brzezinski was suggesting that Barack Obama was behind the George Clooney op-ed. That it was basically making Clooney seem like Obama's puppet. Yeah. Here's the
Writer Tara Palmieri revealed that Mika Brzezinski suspected Barack Obama was behind Clooney's op-ed, shifting the story from Clooney as a lone voice to a pawn in a bigger political game. Kelly also criticized Clooney's silence on truly courageous conservatives like David Mamet, highlighting that Clooney was merely echoing popular party views rather than showing real bravery.
There's one person in particular I think is spectacular. There are a few who I think is levitating above that is Wes Moore. I like him a lot. I think he could be someone we could all join in behind. We have to find somebody rather soon. It's our job now to put together a proper team to stand up, because we're right now polling very poorly.
I love that. Levitating above, as opposed to sinking to the bottom, like his last movie.
Gutfeld's sarcastic roast and Kelly's sharp critique struck a chord with many. Memes mocking Clooney went viral, and their commentary was widely shared by those tired of celebrity grandstanding. Clooney's attempt at serious discourse backfired, turning into public ridicule and a broader rejection of Hollywood's elitist, moralizing. The message was clear, and Hollywood hasn't seemed to listen.
Is going on, this is to 60 last night, about, you mentioned his op-ed in the New York Times on Joe Biden, and why he did it. Such a selfless, brave act, Ben. Here he was.
I was raised to tell the truth. I had seen the president up close for this fundraiser, and I was surprised. And so I feel as if there was a lot of profiles in cowardice in my party through all of that. Oh, wow. And I was not proud of that. And I also believed I had to tell the truth.
That fundraiser where he saw Biden almost falling off the stage, where Obama came out to grab him, was June 15th. The debate was June 27th. It wasn't until July 10th, almost a month after he attended the fundraiser with him, that George Clooney finally wrote that op-ed after it became clear that Joe Biden wasn't stepping down. He's such a liar.
This entire episode became a revealing case study of what many see as Hollywood's incurable ailment: elitism. The persistent belief that success on screen translates into profound insight on politics, economics, and society. Why do so many celebrities feel obligated to preach from their gilded perches? Gutfeld and Kelly didn't just take down Clooney. They exposed a broader, unsettling trend. They highlighted the growing gap between limousine liberals patting themselves on the back at award shows and everyday people who are tired of being lectured by those who live in a completely different reality. Clooney didn't just make a personal misstep. He became the poster child for an entire class of out-of-touch elites whose words are increasingly met with indifference. And the consequences of this disconnect are profound.
in this new world of common sense, what does he align with? He might have way more in common with Trump than he is with the progressives. The question is, does he have the bravery to say that? I have no idea where he stands on the border, sanctuary cities, or trans extremism. How does he feel about the fires in LA? Is he happy with how it was handled by Mayor What's-Her-Face and Governor who's his name? You know, when he talks about cowardice, he waited a long time, but he should have the guts to maybe say that his friends in Hollywood, like Jon Voight or Mel Gibson or Sylvester Stallone, who shared a risk, might have been right on a few things. He's starring in Glengarry Glen Ross, am I right?
No, it's Good Night and Good Luck.
Oh,
sorry,
never mind.
my fault.
I was going to say, I mean, they have tremendous respect for David Mamet. David Mamet is one of the most conservative people. So maybe instead of just sitting in silence, you should actually speak up for some of the people who shared the risk in Hollywood.
And there it was. The final blow for Clooney. His attempt to become a serious political figure backfired spectacularly, met with sharp humor and harsh criticism instead of applause. This wasn't just a bruised ego. It revealed growing public frustration with out-of-touch Hollywood elites. Clooney's political moment signaled a larger trend. Will other celebrities rethink their activism? Or is fame and misplaced confidence too strong to resist? For now, the reviews on this Hollywood political drama are far from flattering.
Julia Roberts, who outed herself not only as a leftist, which we knew, but as somebody who, and by the way, she's also a husband stealer. She stole the husband that she has right now in a reported affair. So, okay, maybe don't be the voice of the ad in which we talk about women betraying their husbands, because in the leftist view, marriages are not about honesty and talking about one's differences and agreeing to disagree on certain dicey issues, but they're about lying. And they believe this so strongly, you put it in an ad. And her pal, George Clooney, who did something similar for another ad, same. You got Joe Biden out. How'd it work out for you? How'd that go? Maybe you should have said something a little earlier.
I think, this Johnny come lately, I was raised to be honest, is a bunch of BS. All right. Obama told him to do it. He sees himself as this extremely important person. I think he's an arrogant, condescending, smug individual who thinks that, he should be able to tell people in America and the Democrat Party, certainly, what they should and shouldn't do. This president, Joe Biden, is one of the most disastrous presidents that we've had.
Julia Roberts recently reminded everyone of her progressive stance, but also her personal controversy, having reportedly married a man after an affair. Maybe she shouldn't be the face of honesty in relationships. Similarly, Clooney's call for Biden to step down fell flat, especially since it seemed politically timed. His "I was raised honest" act feels like a cover-up. In reality, Clooney comes off as arrogant and condescending, trying to tell Americans and the Democratic Party what to do, while Biden continues as one of the most disastrous presidents we've seen. So what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you don't want to miss out on the hottest celebrity news, make sure to subscribe to Daily Finder.